Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're looking for some entertaining stories to help you unwind after a long day, you're in exactly the right place. Tonight, I've got another collection of stories from the Am I Overreacting subreddit, and honestly, some of these situations are absolutely wild. I'm talking about people dealing with boundary-stomping family members, manipulative friends and relatives who seem to think basic respect is optional. These are the kind of stories that will make you feel a lot better about your own life, trust me. I've got my Minecraft world loaded up here, and I'm just going to be doing some relaxing building and mining while we go through these. No commentary about the game, just chill background gameplay while we dive into some drama. So go ahead and grab your favorite drink, get comfortable in bed, or wherever you're watching this, and let's get into some stories that'll probably make you wonder how some people function in society. Whether you're winding down for the night, or just need something playing in the background while you relax, I've got you covered. Let's get into it. Our first story today is titled, Am I Overreacting for Leaving My Best Friend's Wedding Early After She Made Me Pay for My bridesmaid dress, but gave the other bridesmaids theirs for free? Here's the full story. I was asked to be a bridesmaid in my best friend Sarah's wedding about a year ago. We've been friends since college, so I was really honored and excited to be part of her special day. She said she wanted an elegant wedding with a specific color scheme, and she'd picked out designer bridesmaid dresses that cost about $400 each. When she told us the price, I was a bit shocked because that's a lot of money, but I understand that weddings are expensive and I wanted to be supportive. I asked if there was any flexibility on the dress choice or if we could find something similar for less money, but Sarah was pretty firm that she wanted everyone in these specific dresses. So I budgeted for it, cut back on other expenses, and ordered the dress. $400 plus alterations came out to about $475 total. It hurt my bank account, but I paid it because Sarah is my best friend and I wanted her day to be perfect. Fast forward to 2 weeks before the wedding, we had the final dress fitting and bridesmaids luncheon. All 5 bridesmaids were there, plus Sarah and her mum. During lunch, Sarah's mum made a comment about how beautiful all the dresses looked and how generous it was of Sarah to buy them for most of the girls. I was confused and asked what she meant. That's when it came out that Sarah had purchased the bridesmaid dresses for 3 of the 5 bridesmaids. The only people who paid for their own dresses were me and one other girl, Jessica. I asked Sarah why she bought dresses for some bridesmaids but not others. She got uncomfortable and said that the 3 girls she bought dresses for had mentioned they were struggling financially, so she wanted to help them out. She said she knew that Jessica and I were more financially stable, so she didn't think we'd mind paying for our own. I was stunned. First of all, Sarah never asked me about my financial situation. She just assumed that because I have a decent job, I could easily afford a $475 dress. Second, if she was going to buy dresses for some bridesmaids, she should have either bought them for everyone or been upfront about who she was helping, so the rest of us could make informed decisions. I told Sarah I felt hurt that she didn't even tell me she was buying dresses for other people. I said that if I'd known she was willing to purchase dresses for bridesmaids who were struggling, I would have told her that I was also finding it difficult to afford. I'm not in dire financial straits, but $475 is still a significant expense for me, and I'd made sacrifices to afford it. Sarah got defensive and said I was being petty and making her wedding about money. She said she was just trying to be kind to her friends who needed help and that I should be happy for them instead of being jealous. She said that compared to the other girls, I make good money and shouldn't complain about an expense I could clearly afford. I tried to explain that it wasn't about jealousy, it was about the principle of treating your bridesmaids equally and being transparent about what you're doing. If you're going to help some people financially, you should at least tell everyone so they can speak up if they're also struggling. Sarah said I was overreacting and that this was a stupid thing to be upset about. Her mum actually jumped in and said I was being ungrateful and that I should be ashamed of myself for trying to guilt Sarah into paying for my dress when other girls needed the help more than I did. The other bridesmaids were silent and uncomfortable. The luncheon ended awkwardly and I went home feeling terrible. I talked to my husband about it that night and he said he understood why I was hurt, but that maybe I should just let it go since the wedding was so close. I decided to try to move past it and just focus on being there for Sarah on her big day. The wedding day arrived and I showed up ready to put my feelings aside and be a supportive bridesmaid. But during the getting ready process, I overheard Sarah talking to one of the bridesmaids who'd gotten a free dress. She was saying how annoying it was that I'd made such a big deal about money at the luncheon and how she didn't understand why I couldn't just be happy for her instead of causing drama. The other girl agreed and said some people just can't help but make everything about themselves. They both laughed, and then Sarah said Thank God she at least paid for the dress without too much complaining. I knew she would, because she always wants everyone to think she's such a good friend. I was crushed. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and just cried. This was supposed to be my best friend, and she was mocking me behind my back for having hurt feelings about something that was legitimately unfair. I decided I couldn't stay. I didn't want to ruin Sarah's wedding by being visibly upset in photos and during the ceremony. So I told Sarah I had a sudden migraine and needed to leave. She seemed annoyed but told me to feel better. I left before the ceremony even started. I went home, changed out of the $475 dress, and spent the rest of the day trying to process what had happened. Sarah has been blowing up my phone since the wedding. She's furious that I left and is saying I ruined her wedding by not being there. She said one of her bridesmaids was missing from all the photos and that the symmetry of the ceremony was off. She's calling me selfish and saying I abandoned her on the most important day of her life over a petty argument. Her family is also messaging me, saying I'm a terrible friend and that I should be ashamed of myself. Several mutual friends have reached out saying they heard what happened and that while they understand I was hurt, leaving the wedding was too extreme and I should have just sucked it up for one day. My husband says he supports whatever I decide, but that he's worried I just ended a friendship over this. Jessica, the other bridesmaid who paid for her dress, texted me privately and said she completely understood why I left and that she almost did the same thing. So am I overreacting for leaving my best friend's wedding early after finding out she bought dresses for some bridesmaids but not others, and then hearing her mock me for being upset about it? Wow, okay, absolutely not overreacting. Sarah treated you unfairly, lied by omission, and then had the audacity to mock you behind your back for having completely valid feelings about it. Let's break this down. First, the dress situation. If Sarah wanted to help bridesmaids who were struggling financially, that's actually a kind thing to do. But here's where she went wrong. She wasn't transparent about it. She should have either talked to all the bridesmaids privately about their budgets before choosing an expensive dress, or she should have told everyone up front that she was helping certain people so that others could also speak up if needed. Instead, she just assumed who could and couldn't afford it, based on her perception of everyone's financial situation. That's incredibly presumptuous. Just because someone has a decent job doesn't mean they have $475 of disposable income lying around. You don't know people's full financial pictures. They might have student loans, medical debt, family members they're supporting, or any number of financial obligations that aren't visible from the outside. The fact that you had to cut back on other expenses to afford the dress shows that it was a genuine financial stretch for you, even if you weren't in crisis mode. Sarah never gave you the opportunity to say, hey, this is actually really difficult for me too. Second, her reaction when you expressed your hurt feelings was completely dismissive. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I should have talked to you about this, she got defensive and made you out to be petty and jealous. She turned your legitimate concern about being treated differently into a character flaw on your part. Her mum calling you ungrateful was way out of line. You weren't asking Sarah to pay for your dress retroactively. You were expressing hurt about not being given the same consideration as other bridesmaids. That's not ungrateful, that's asking to be treated fairly. Third, and this is the big one, Sarah talking about you behind your back on her wedding day. She wasn't just venting frustration, she was actively mocking you and questioning your motives for being a good friend. The comment about you paying for the dress without too much complaining because you always want everyone to think you're such a good friend is actually cruel. She's implying that your friendship and support are performative, that you're only a good friend because you want the social credit for it. That's an incredibly hurtful thing to say about someone who just spent $475 and presumably a lot of time and energy being in your wedding. You leaving the wedding wasn't you ruining her day, it was you protecting yourself from further hurt. You even tried to be discreet about it by saying you had a migraine rather than causing a scene. You could have confronted her in front of everyone, you could have made a dramatic exit, but you didn't. You quietly removed yourself from a situation that was emotionally damaging. Sarah saying you ruined her wedding by not being there is rich considering she ruined the friendship by treating you poorly and then mocking you. The symmetry of the ceremony being off is not your problem. You know what else ruins symmetry? Being a bad friend. The people saying you should have just sucked it up for one day are wrong. Why should you have to stand up there, smile for photos, and celebrate someone who just demonstrated that she doesn't respect you or value your friendship? That's not being a good friend, that's being a doormat. Jessica privately supporting you is telling. She experienced the same unfair treatment and completely understood your reaction. That validates that this wasn't just you being overly sensitive. Here's the reality. This probably did end your friendship with Sarah, but honestly, she ended it first. She ended it when she treated you unequally, without explanation. She ended it when she dismissed your feelings, and she really ended it when she mocked you behind your back on what was supposed to be a celebration of love and friendship. You deserve friends who treat you with respect and consideration. You deserve friends who, when you express hurt feelings, actually listen and try to understand rather than getting defensive and making you the villain. I'm calling not overreacting. You were hurt, you tried to address it, you were dismissed and mocked, and you removed yourself from a painful situation. That's not ruining someone's wedding, that's having self-respect. Let's move on to story number 2. This one is titled, Am I Overreacting for Blocking My Brother After He Told His Kids That Santa Isn't Real in Front of My Children? Here we go. I have 2 kids, ages 5 and 7. My brother has 3 kids, who are 10, 12 and 14. We live in the same town and see each other regularly for family dinners and holidays. My brother and his wife have decided to raise their kids without lying to them about things like Santa, the Tooth Fairy, or the Easter Bunny. They told their kids from the beginning that those things aren't real and that it's parents who do all of that. That's their choice, and I respect it, even though it's not how I'm choosing to raise my kids. My kids still believe in Santa and all the magic of childhood. We do the whole thing with cookies and milk on Christmas Eve, letters to Santa, Elf on the Shelf, all of it. It brings them so much joy and wonder, and I love seeing their faces light up when they talk about Santa coming. Last month, we had a family dinner at my parents' house. All the kids were playing in the basement while the adults were upstairs cooking and chatting. At one point, I went downstairs to check on the kids and see if they wanted snacks. When I got to the bottom of the stairs, I heard my brother's oldest son saying very loudly, "Santa isn't real, you know. It's just your parents pretending. They're lying to you." My 7-year-old daughter looked confused and said, "No, Santa is real. He brings us presents every year." My nephew laughed and said, "No, he doesn't. Your mum and dad buy the presents and put them under the tree. They eat the cookies you leave out. Santa is just a story for babies." My 5-year-old son started crying, and my daughter looked like she was about to cry too. I immediately intervened and told my nephew that different families believe different things and that he needed to stop talking about this topic. I took my kids back upstairs. My kids were really upset. My daughter kept asking me if what their cousin said was true. I tried to do damage control without outright lying, but it was clear that the magic had been broken. My son was inconsolable, crying about how Santa wasn't real and Christmas was ruined. I was furious. I found my brother and pulled him aside. I told him what his son had just done and that my kids were devastated. I said that while I respect his choice to raise his kids without Santa, he needs to teach his children to respect that other families do things differently. My brother shrugged and said, "Well, maybe it's good that they know the truth now. You were going to have to tell them eventually anyway." I said that wasn't the point. The point was that his son deliberately told my young children something that he knew would upset them, and that my brother needed to talk to his kid about respecting other people's choices. My brother said he wasn't going to punish his son for telling the truth. He said that his kids shouldn't have to pretend Santa is real just to protect my kids' feelings. He said I was the one creating the problem by lying to my children in the first place, and that maybe this was a wake-up call that I should be more honest with them. I was so angry I could barely speak. I told him that this wasn't about honesty versus dishonesty. This was about his son being mean to younger kids and him refusing to parent his child. I said that his son clearly wasn't just innocently sharing information, he was deliberately trying to upset my kids by being condescending and calling them babies. My brother told me I was overreacting and being too sensitive. He said kids learn these things eventually and that my kids would be fine. He actually said, "They'll get over it. It's not that deep." I took my kids and left the dinner early. They cried the whole way home. That night was rough. My daughter kept asking me questions about Santa that I didn't know how to answer without either lying or confirming what my nephew had said. My son had nightmares about Christmas being ruined. Over the next few days, I tried to rebuild some of the magic, but it wasn't the same. My daughter was skeptical now, and my son kept bringing up what his cousin had said. I decided I needed to set a boundary. I called my brother and told him that until he was willing to acknowledge that his son was inappropriate and agreed to teach his kids to respect our family's choices, we wouldn't be attending family events where his kids would be present. He laughed and said I was being ridiculous. He said I couldn't just skip family events because I was mad that his kid told the truth. He said I was trying to control what his children say, and that wasn't going to happen. I told him I wasn't trying to control his kids, I was protecting mine. And since he clearly wasn't going to do anything to prevent this from happening again, I needed to create distance. He got angry and said I was being a bad sister and breaking up the family over something stupid. He said his kids didn't do anything wrong and that I was punishing everyone because I couldn't handle reality. I ended the call and blocked him on my phone and social media. I told my parents that we would still attend family events, but only if my brother's family wasn't going to be there. I asked them to let me know in advance who would be at gatherings so I could make decisions accordingly. My parents are upset. They say I'm overreacting and that I'm creating unnecessary family drama. They say that while what my nephew said was unfortunate, it's not worth splitting the family over. They think I should just talk to my kids about Santa not being real and move on. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, has been texting me saying I'm being unreasonable and that I can't expect the whole world to protect my kids from reality. She said that their kids have a right to share their beliefs and that I'm being controlling by expecting them to censor themselves around my children. Some of my friends agree with me and say my brother should have addressed his son's behavior. Others think I'm taking this too far and that blocking my brother and avoiding family events is an extreme reaction to what was ultimately just kids being kids. My husband supports me, but is worried about the long-term effects this will have on family relationships. He's concerned that my kids will miss out on time with their grandparents and extended family because of this conflict. So am I overreacting for blocking my brother after his son told my kids Santa isn't real and my brother refused to address it? No, you are not overreacting. This isn't really about Santa. This is about respect, boundaries, and your brother refusing to parent his child when that child was deliberately cruel to younger kids. Let's unpack this. First, everyone gets to choose how they raise their own kids. Your brother choosing not to do Santa with his kids is fine. You choosing to do Santa with your kids is fine. Neither approach is inherently right or wrong, they're just different parenting choices. But here's where your brother went wrong. He's not teaching his children to respect that other families make different choices. His oldest son didn't accidentally let Santa information slip. He deliberately, with condescension and mockery, told your young children that Santa isn't real and that you're lying to them. He called them babies. That wasn't an innocent sharing of information. That was a 10-year-old being mean to younger kids. Your brother's response should have been to talk to his son about respecting other families' traditions and not being cruel to younger children. Instead, he defended his son and blamed you for lying to your kids. The comment about it being good that they know the truth now is dismissive of your feelings and your parenting choices. He's basically saying his way of doing things is superior, and you should thank his son for correcting your mistake. And let's be clear about something. Choosing to let your young children believe in Santa is not the same as lying in a harmful way. It's a cultural tradition that millions of families participate in. It's meant to create wonder and magic during childhood. You weren't deceiving your kids about something important like health or safety. You were participating in a widely accepted childhood tradition. Whether or not you agree with the Santa tradition, parents should get to make that choice for their own kids. A 10-year-old doesn't get to override that decision, especially not in a mean-spirited way. Your brother saying his kids shouldn't have to pretend Santa is real is a straw man argument. You weren't asking his kids to pretend anything. You were asking them to not deliberately tell your younger children something that would upset them. There's a big difference between pretending to believe in Santa and simply not talking about it around kids who do believe. His refusal to see how his son's behavior was inappropriate is the real problem here. A good parent would have said, "You're right, my son was being mean to younger kids. I'll talk to him about being more respectful." Instead, he doubled down and made you the villain for being upset. Calling you a bad sister and saying you're breaking up the family is manipulation. You're not breaking up the family. You're setting a boundary after he refused to address his child's behavior or respect your parenting choices. Your parents saying this isn't worth splitting the family over are prioritizing peace over your legitimate concerns. It's easier for them to tell you to let it go than to hold your brother accountable for his dismissive response. Your sister-in-law saying you can't expect the world to protect your kids from reality is another straw man. You're not asking the world to do anything. You're asking your nephew, a family member, to not be deliberately mean to your young children. That's a reasonable expectation. The kids being kids excuse doesn't hold water. A 10-year-old is old enough to understand that you don't deliberately upset younger children. And even if you want to excuse the 10-year-old's behavior as immaturity, your brother is an adult who absolutely should know better. Your friends who think blocking your brother is too extreme might not fully understand the situation. This isn't just about one incident. It's about your brother's complete dismissal of your feelings, his refusal to parent his child, and his judgment of your parenting choices. By blocking him and setting boundaries around family events, you're protecting your children from further interactions with a cousin who has been cruel to them and an uncle who won't address it. That's not overreacting, that's good parenting. The concern about your kids missing out on time with extended family is valid, but you've offered a compromise. You're still willing to attend family events, just not ones where your brother's family will be present. That's not unreasonable given the circumstances. If your brother wanted to resolve this, he could. He could apologize for dismissing your concerns. He could talk to his son about being kinder to younger cousins. He could agree that his kids should avoid the topic of Santa around your children. But he's chosen not to do any of those things because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. I'm calling not overreacting. You tried to address the issue directly, you were dismissed and blamed, and you set a boundary to protect your children. That's appropriate. Your brother can choose to respect your boundary and work on the relationship, or he can continue to be stubborn about it. That's on him, not you. Alright, let's get into story number 3. This one is called, Am I Overreacting for Refusing to Give My Inheritance to My Stepmother After My Dad Died? Here's the situation. My dad passed away suddenly 3 months ago from a heart attack. He was only 58, and it was completely unexpected. I'm still processing the grief and trying to adjust to life without him. My dad and my mum divorced when I was 12. My mum passed away from cancer when I was 19. After my mum died, my relationship with my dad became really important to me because he was my only parent left. My dad remarried when I was 21 to a woman named Linda. I'm now 29, so they were married for about 8 years. I tried to have a good relationship with Linda, but we were never particularly close. She was nice enough, but there was always a bit of distance between us. She had her own adult children from a previous marriage, and I think we both saw each other more as our parents' spouse than as family. When my dad died, I found out that he had left me a significant inheritance. He owned a small but successful business that he sold a few years ago, and he'd invested the money wisely. He left me about $600,000, his house which is paid off and worth about $300,000, and various personal items. He left Linda his retirement accounts, which total about $400,000, and a life insurance policy worth $200,000. So Linda received about $600,000 total. I thought this was fair. We each received substantial inheritances, and I assumed my dad had thought carefully about how to divide things. The house had been my childhood home, the one I grew up in with my mum before she died, so it was particularly meaningful to me that he left it to me. A week after the funeral, Linda asked if we could meet for coffee. I agreed, thinking she maybe wanted to talk about my dad or share memories or something. Instead, she told me that she thought my dad's will was unfair. She said that as his widow, she should have received more than she did. She said $600,000 wasn't enough for her to maintain her lifestyle, especially since my dad had been the primary earner in their marriage. I was taken aback. $600,000 is a lot of money, certainly enough to live comfortably, especially since Linda is only 52 and could continue working if she needed to. Linda then said that she thought I should give her the house. She said she needed somewhere to live and that it wasn't fair that I got both the house and such a large cash inheritance. She said I was young and could easily afford to buy my own place with the money I received, whereas she was older and the house would give her security. I told her that my dad clearly wanted me to have the house and that I wasn't going to give it to her. I explained that the house was my childhood home and had immense sentimental value to me. Linda got upset and said I was being selfish. She said that my dad probably didn't realize how much she would need after he died and that if he'd known, he would have left her more. She said a good stepdaughter would help her stepmother in a time of need. I pointed out that she wasn't in need. She had received $600,000, which was the same amount I received. She was financially secure. Linda said that wasn't the point. The point was that she had been my dad's wife, and she deserved to be taken care of. She said I only knew my dad for 29 years, but she had planned to spend the rest of her life with him. She said her loss was greater than mine, and therefore she deserved more. I was hurt and angry. I told her that this wasn't a competition about who loved my dad more or who deserved what. I said my dad had made his wishes clear in his will, and I was going to respect those wishes. Linda started crying and said I was abandoning her when she needed support. She said my dad would be disappointed in me for not taking care of his widow. She said that in some cultures, children are expected to support their parents' spouses after they die, and that I was being culturally insensitive by refusing to help her. I ended the coffee meeting and left. I thought that would be the end of it, but Linda has been relentless. She's been calling and texting me constantly, asking me to reconsider. She's sent her adult children to talk to me about how their mum is struggling. She's even reached out to my extended family members to try to get them to pressure me into giving her the house or at least some of my inheritance. Some family members are saying I should compromise and maybe give Linda some money to help her out. They're saying that my dad's sudden death has left her in a difficult position and that the compassionate thing to do would be to help her adjust. Others are saying that my dad's will was clear and that Linda needs to accept it and move on. They're pointing out that $600,000 is a substantial inheritance, and that Linda is being greedy. Linda has now escalated things by suggesting that my dad wasn't of sound mind when he made his will. She's hinting that she might contest it legally, claiming that my dad was influenced by me, or that he didn't understand what he was doing when he divided his assets the way he did. This has made me incredibly angry. My dad was sharp and thoughtful until the day he died. He absolutely knew what he was doing when he made his will. The suggestion that I somehow manipulated him is offensive and false. My dad's lawyer has told me that Linda's claims have no merit and that the will is solid. He said she's welcome to try to contest it, but she would be wasting her money and would almost certainly lose. Despite this reassurance, I'm stressed and hurt by this whole situation. I'm grieving my dad, and instead of being able to process that grief, I'm dealing with constant pressure from Linda to give her money and property that my dad wanted me to have. I've started ignoring Linda's calls and messages. I've blocked her on social media. I've told family members who try to pressure me on her behalf that the topic is not open for discussion. Linda is now telling people that I'm a cruel, selfish person who doesn't care about my stepmother's well-being. She's painting herself as a victim who's being mistreated by her ungrateful stepdaughter. Some people believe her narrative. I've had a few distant relatives send me messages saying they're disappointed in me and that I should be ashamed of how I'm treating Linda during such a difficult time. My close friends and my boyfriend support me completely. They say Linda is being manipulative and greedy and that I'm doing the right thing by standing my ground. But the constant drama and family pressure is exhausting. Part of me wonders if I should just give Linda some money to make all of this go away. But another part of me knows that giving in would be disrespecting my dad's wishes and rewarding Linda's manipulative behavior. So am I overreacting for refusing to give my stepmother any of my inheritance after my dad died? Absolutely not overreacting. Linda is being manipulative, greedy, and disrespectful to both you and your father's clearly stated wishes. Let's break down why you're completely in the right here. First, your dad left a will. A will is a legal document that represents a person's final wishes for how their assets should be distributed. Your dad thought about this, made his decisions, and put them in writing. Respecting those wishes is not selfish, it's honoring your father. Your dad left both you and Linda substantial amounts of money. You each received approximately $600,000 worth of assets. That's not Linda being left with nothing. That's Linda being left with a life-changing amount of money. Linda's claim that $600,000 isn't enough to maintain her lifestyle is absurd. If she can't live comfortably on that amount, especially as someone who's only 52 and could work if needed, that's a budgeting problem, not an inheritance problem. Her argument that she deserves the house because she needs somewhere to live ignores the fact that she could easily buy herself a house with the $600,000 she inherited. She doesn't need your house, she wants it. The comment about your dad probably not realizing how much she would need is insulting to your father's intelligence and planning. Your dad was a successful businessman who sold his company and invested wisely. He clearly understood finances and made deliberate choices about his estate. Linda saying her loss is greater than yours because she planned to spend the rest of her life with him is manipulative and cruel. You lost your father, your only remaining parent. This isn't a competition about whose grief is more valid, and even if it were, that wouldn't entitle her to more of the inheritance. The good stepdaughter comment is emotional blackmail. She's trying to guilt you into giving her money by appealing to a relationship that, by your own account, was never particularly close. You tried to have a good relationship with her, but she was always somewhat distant. Now suddenly you're supposed to prioritize her financial comfort over your own father's wishes? The cultural argument is nonsense. Even in cultures where children are expected to support widowed parents, that expectation exists when the parent is actually in need. Linda is not in need, she has $600,000. And more importantly, your dad clearly did not have those cultural expectations, as evidenced by how he chose to divide his estate. Linda sending her adult children to pressure you is inappropriate. This is between you and her, and she's trying to create an army of people to wear you down. Her reaching out to extended family to pressure you is even worse. She's trying to manipulate your family relationships to get what she wants. That's calculated and manipulative. The suggestion that your dad wasn't of sound mind when he made his will is vile. She's willing to tarnish your father's memory and accuse you of manipulation just to get more money. That tells you everything you need to know about her character and priorities. Your dad's lawyer confirming that her claims have no merit is important. This isn't a grey area where there's legitimate legal ambiguity. Your dad's will is clear and valid. Linda is just grasping at straws. The family members saying you should compromise don't seem to understand that there's nothing to compromise about. Your dad already made the decision. Compromising would mean ignoring his wishes to appease someone who's being greedy. Linda playing the victim and calling you cruel and selfish is classic manipulator behavior. When manipulation doesn't work, they try to damage your reputation to either punish you or create more pressure. The people who believe her narrative are either not hearing your side of the story, or are the kind of people who will always side with whoever claims to be the victim loudest, regardless of facts. Your friends and boyfriend are right. Linda is being manipulative and greedy, and you're doing the right thing by standing your ground. The thought of giving her money just to make it go away is understandable because you're exhausted and grieving. But here's the thing, giving her money won't make it go away. It will teach her that if she harasses and pressures you enough, you'll cave. That's a terrible precedent to set. More importantly, giving in would disrespect your father's final wishes. He thought carefully about what he wanted each of you to have. He wanted you to have the house and the cash inheritance he left you. Giving that away to make Linda stop complaining would be betraying his trust and his planning. I'm calling not overreacting. You're honoring your father's wishes, protecting your inheritance, and refusing to be manipulated by someone who's shown their true colors during a time when they should have been supporting you in mutual grief. Block Linda. Ignore the family pressure and live your life with the inheritance your father wanted you to have. If people want to judge you for that, they can deal with Linda's constant demands for money themselves and see how generous they feel. Let's move to story number 4. This one is titled, Am I Overreacting for Uninviting My Friend from My Birthday Party After She Brought Her New Boyfriend to My Divorce Celebration? Okay, here's what happened. I recently went through a difficult divorce. My ex-husband cheated on me multiple times throughout our 5-year marriage. When I finally found out the extent of his infidelity, I filed for divorce. It was painful and exhausting, but I finally got through it, and the divorce was finalized 2 months ago. My close friends wanted to do something to celebrate me moving on and starting a new chapter. They organized a small dinner party at a nice restaurant, just 8 of us, all women who'd supported me through the divorce. They called it my freedom party, and it was meant to be a night where we celebrated me being free from a bad marriage and looking toward the future. One of the friends organizing it was my friend Rachel. I've known Rachel for about 6 years, and she'd been particularly supportive during my divorce. She'd listened to me cry, helped me move out of the house I shared with my ex, and was generally amazing throughout the whole process. About a week before the dinner, Rachel asked if she could bring her new boyfriend to the party. I was surprised because this was supposed to be a girls' night, and also because I didn't even know Rachel was dating anyone new. I told her I'd prefer if it was just us girls, like we'd originally planned. I explained that I wasn't really in a place emotionally where I wanted to be around happy couples, especially at an event that was specifically about me processing my divorce. Rachel said she understood, but asked if I'd mind if she just brought him for drinks before dinner, and then he'd leave. She said she really wanted me to meet him, and that she thought it would be good for me to see what a healthy relationship looked like. That comment stung, but I tried to be understanding. I said I'd rather wait to meet him at a different time, when the focus wasn't on my divorce. Rachel seemed disappointed but said okay. The night of the dinner arrived, and I got to the restaurant right on time. I was the first one there, and the hostess showed me to our table. As other friends started arriving, we ordered drinks and started chatting. It felt good to be surrounded by supportive friends. Then Rachel walked in with a man. I assumed he was just dropping her off or something, but she brought him right to the table and introduced him as her boyfriend, Kyle. She said they were going to join us for dinner. I was shocked. I pulled Rachel aside and reminded her that we'd agreed this would be just the girls. She said that Kyle really wanted to come and that she didn't think I'd mind since it was just one person. She said she'd told him all about me and my divorce, and he was excited to offer his perspective as a man on what went wrong in my marriage. I was appalled. I told Rachel that I absolutely did mind, that this was supposed to be my night with my close friends, and that I definitely didn't want relationship advice from a stranger, especially not on a night that was meant to celebrate the end of my marriage. Rachel got defensive and said I was being unreasonable. She said Kyle had already cancelled other plans to be here and that it would be rude to send him away. She said I was being selfish and that a true friend would be happy that she was in a new relationship and would want to meet the person who makes her happy. I told her that I am happy for her, but that this specific event was not the appropriate time to bring a new boyfriend, especially after I'd specifically asked her not to. Rachel said I was making a big deal out of nothing and that Kyle was going to stay. She sat down at the table with him and they started ordering drinks. I was so upset I could barely think straight. This was supposed to be my night, my celebration with my closest friends, and now there was this random man at the table who my friend had specifically told about my divorce and who apparently thought he had insights to share about my failed marriage. I quietly told the other friends what had happened and how uncomfortable I was. They were all shocked and agreed that Rachel had been inappropriate. One friend offered to ask Rachel and Kyle to leave, but I didn't want to cause a scene at the restaurant. Instead, I stayed for about 30 minutes, trying to make the best of it. But Kyle kept trying to talk to me about my divorce. He'd ask questions like, "Do you think the marriage failed because you weren't meeting his needs? And have you considered what you might have done to push him toward other women?" I was trying to be polite, but inside I was furious. Finally, when he suggested that my ex probably cheated because I was too focused on other things instead of the marriage, I'd had enough. I stood up, said I wasn't feeling well, and left. I went home and cried. My divorce celebration had been ruined by my friend bringing her new boyfriend, who then proceeded to essentially blame me for my ex's cheating. The other friends stayed for a while longer, but several of them texted me afterwards saying they were so sorry about what happened and that Rachel's behavior was completely out of line. Rachel texted me the next day saying she was sorry I left early and hoped I was feeling better. She didn't acknowledge that she'd brought Kyle against my wishes or that his comments had been inappropriate. She acted like I'd just gotten sick randomly. I didn't respond. I needed time to process what had happened and figure out how I felt about the friendship. My birthday is coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm having a party at my apartment. I'd already invited Rachel before the dinner incident. Yesterday, I uninvited her. I sent her a message explaining that after what happened at my divorce celebration, I no longer felt comfortable having her at my birthday party. Rachel is furious. She says I'm overreacting and punishing her for trying to include Kyle in her life. She says I'm being a bad friend by not supporting her new relationship. She says that Kyle was just trying to help me by offering a man's perspective on my divorce and that I'm being too sensitive. She's told our mutual friends that I uninvited her from my birthday party, and now there's division in the friend group. Some friends completely support my decision and think Rachel was way out of line. Others think that while Rachel made a mistake, uninviting her from my birthday is too harsh and I should give her another chance. Rachel is saying that I'm letting my divorce make me bitter and that I'm taking out my anger on her and Kyle. She's saying that true friends forgive mistakes and that I'm throwing away our friendship over one misunderstanding. My sister thinks I did the right thing and that Rachel showed her true colors. My mum thinks I should be the bigger person and re-invite Rachel, saying that friends make mistakes and I shouldn't let one bad night ruin a 6-year friendship. So am I overreacting for uninviting my friend from my birthday party after she brought her new boyfriend to my divorce celebration against my wishes? Not overreacting at all. Rachel disrespected your clearly stated boundary, ruined an event that was meant to support you, and then refused to take accountability for it. Let's go through this step by step. You explicitly told Rachel that you wanted the divorce celebration to be just the girls. You gave her a clear reason why. You weren't in a place emotionally to be around couples. That's a completely reasonable boundary, especially for an event specifically about processing your divorce. Rachel asked if she could bring Kyle for just drinks. You said no and offered to meet him at a different time. That should have been the end of the discussion. You set a clear boundary and offered a reasonable alternative. Rachel showing up with Kyle anyway was a deliberate violation of that boundary. This wasn't a misunderstanding. You had explicitly discussed it, and she agreed to your request. Then she did whatever she wanted anyway. Her excuse that Kyle had already cancelled other plans is not your problem. She should never have made plans for him to attend in the first place after you said no. She created that situation, not you. The accusation that you're selfish and that a true friend would want to meet the person who makes her happy is manipulation. Of course you want your friends to be happy in their relationships. But there's a time and place for introductions, and an intimate dinner meant to support you through a difficult life transition is not that time. Rachel saying Kyle was going to stay regardless of your feelings shows a complete lack of respect for you and for the purpose of the event. She prioritized her desire to have her boyfriend there over your emotional comfort at your own celebration. Now let's talk about Kyle. The fact that Rachel told him all about your divorce before you even met him is a violation of your privacy. Your personal life and failed marriage are not conversation topics to share with her new boyfriend as entertainment. Kyle's comments throughout the dinner were absolutely inappropriate and honestly cruel, suggesting that you somehow caused your ex to cheat by not meeting his needs or by being too focused on other things is victim blaming at its worst. Cheating is a choice the cheater makes. It's not something you cause by being imperfect. The fact that Kyle thought it was appropriate to offer these insights to someone he just met at a dinner meant to celebrate that person moving on from betrayal shows a staggering lack of social awareness and empathy. Rachel not acknowledging any of this in her text the next day is telling. She acted like you just randomly got sick. She didn't apologize for bringing Kyle, didn't acknowledge that his comments were hurtful, and didn't take any responsibility for ruining your night. That's not someone who made an innocent mistake. That's someone who doesn't think they did anything wrong. Your decision to uninvite her from your birthday party is a logical consequence of her behavior. Why would you want someone at your birthday celebration who already proved they'll disrespect your boundaries and ruin events that are supposed to be about you? Rachel calling this punishment for including Kyle in her life is disingenuous. You're not punishing her for having a boyfriend. You're enforcing a consequence for her violating your clearly stated wishes and then refusing to acknowledge or apologize for it. The claim that Kyle was just trying to help is absurd. His comments weren't helpful, they were hurtful, and even if his intentions were somehow good, impact matters more than intent. He hurt you, Rachel saw it happening and didn't stop it, and neither of them has apologized. Rachel saying you're letting your divorce make you bitter and taking out your anger on her is more manipulation. You're not bitter, you're setting boundaries with someone who proved they don't respect you. That's healthy, not bitter. The true friends forgive mistakes argument only works if the person making the mistake acknowledges it and apologizes. Rachel has done neither. She still thinks she did nothing wrong, which means she'll likely do something similar again. The friends who think uninviting her is too harsh might not fully understand the situation, or they might be conflict-averse people who think keeping the peace is more important than respecting boundaries. Your mom suggesting you be the bigger person is a common response, but being the bigger person doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It means handling conflict with grace, which you've done. You didn't scream at Rachel at the restaurant. You didn't blast her on social media. You simply uninvited her from your birthday party with an explanation. The question isn't whether Rachel made a mistake. She did. The question is whether she's taken accountability for it, and she hasn't. Until she does, why would you want her at another event celebrating you? I'm calling not overreacting. You set a boundary, Rachel violated it, she ruined your celebration, she refused to apologize, and you decided not to give her the opportunity to do it again at your birthday. That's not overreacting, that's learning from experience. Alright, let's get into our last story for today. This one is titled, Am I Overreacting for Refusing to Let My In-Laws Stay With Us for Christmas After They Criticized My Housekeeping? Here's the full story. My husband and I have been married for 3 years. We have a 1-year-old daughter, and I work full-time from home, while also being the primary caregiver for our baby. My husband works long hours at an office and isn't home much during the week. My in-laws live about 5 hours away and usually visit us twice a year, once in summer and once around Christmas. They typically stay for about 4 or 5 days when they visit. Last month, my mother-in-law called and asked if they could come stay with us for Christmas week. I said yes because that's what we usually do, and I didn't want to break tradition. 3 weeks ago, they came for an early visit because they were passing through our area on their way to somewhere else. They stayed for 2 nights. During their stay, my mother-in-law made several comments about my housekeeping. She pointed out that there were toys scattered around the living room. She mentioned that she noticed dust on some of the shelves. She asked when the last time I'd mopped the floors was. She reorganized my kitchen cabinets without asking because she said she couldn't find anything. She even went into our bedroom and made comments about how we should really make our bed every morning and how unmade beds make the whole house feel messy. I was really hurt by these comments, but I tried to brush them off. I explained that with a 1-year-old and working full-time, I prioritize spending time with my daughter over having a perfectly clean house. I said that we keep the house sanitary and safe, but it's not going to be spotless. My mother-in-law said she understood, but that when she had young children and worked, she still managed to keep a clean house. She said it's all about priorities and time management. She strongly implied that if I tried harder, I could have a cleaner home. My father-in-law didn't say much, but nodded along with everything my mother-in-law said, which felt like agreement. After they left, I talked to my husband about how their comments made me feel. He agreed that his mum was out of line, but said she probably didn't mean anything by it, and that I shouldn't take it personally. He said his mum has always been particular about cleanliness, and that's just how she is. I told him that just how she is doesn't give her the right to criticize how I maintain our home. He said I was right, and that he'd talk to her if she said anything like that again. Fast forward to last week. My mother-in-law called me directly to ask what dates in December would work best for their Christmas visit. During the conversation, she mentioned that she was looking forward to seeing us and hoped that the house would be in better shape than it was during their last visit. I was stunned. She was basically saying that my house wasn't acceptable and that she expected it to be cleaner for Christmas. I told her that our house is always in the same shape, clean enough but lived in, and that if that's not acceptable to her, perhaps they should consider staying at a hotel instead of with us. She got flustered and said she wasn't trying to be rude. She just thought it would be nice if I put in a little extra effort for the holidays. She said that when you have guests, you're supposed to prepare your home and make it welcoming. I said that our home is welcoming, and that if she finds it unwelcoming, because there might be some toys on the floor or some dishes in the sink, then maybe she'd be more comfortable somewhere else. She got quiet and then said she needed to go and would call me back later. She called my husband instead and told him that I'd been rude to her and had essentially uninvited them from Christmas. My husband came to me and asked what happened. I explained the conversation and he said I might have overreacted. He said his mum was just trying to be helpful and that I took it the wrong way. He said it wouldn't kill me to do a deep clean before they visit so his parents feel comfortable. I was furious. I told him that I'm not going to deep clean our house to meet his mother's standards, especially when I'm already stretched thin with work and taking care of our daughter. I said that if his parents can't accept our home the way it is, they're welcome to stay at a hotel. My husband said I was being unreasonable and that it's normal to want your house to be extra clean when guests are coming. He said I was letting my pride get in the way of family harmony. I told him this wasn't about pride, it was about respect. His mother had criticized my housekeeping, then called to say she hoped it would be better for Christmas, and I was simply setting a boundary that our home is what it is and she needs to accept it or make other arrangements. My husband said I was being stubborn and that I was going to ruin Christmas over something stupid. He said his parents have always stayed with us for Christmas and that changing that now would hurt their feelings and cause unnecessary drama. I stood my ground and said that unless his mother apologized for her comments and agreed to stop criticizing how I keep our house, I wasn't comfortable with them staying with us. My mother-in-law has not apologized. Instead, she's told family members that I uninvited them from Christmas and that I'm being hostile toward her for no reason. She's painted herself as a victim who was just trying to be helpful and got attacked for it. Several family members have reached out to me, saying I'm overreacting. They say that mother-in-laws sometimes make comments that are a little critical, and that's just how older generations are. They say I should be more understanding and not let small comments ruin family relationships. My own mother thinks I did the right thing and that my mother-in-law was inappropriate. She says no one has the right to come into your home and criticize how you maintain it. My husband is now saying that if I don't allow his parents to stay with us for Christmas, he's going to go stay at a hotel with them for the holiday. He says I'm forcing him to choose between his wife and his parents, and that's not fair. I feel like I'm being gaslighted. I set a reasonable boundary after being criticized, and now I'm somehow the villain who's ruining Christmas. So am I overreacting for refusing to let my in-laws stay with us for Christmas after they criticized my housekeeping? No, you are not overreacting. Your mother-in-law criticized your home, essentially told you to clean it better for her next visit, and now she's playing the victim when you set a boundary. And your husband is enabling her behavior instead of supporting you. Let's break this down. First, your mother-in-law's comments during their visit were inappropriate. Pointing out dust, asking when you last mopped, reorganizing your kitchen without permission, and commenting on your unmade bed are all criticisms of how you run your household. These weren't helpful suggestions, they were judgments. She was telling you that your standards aren't good enough for her. The comment about how she managed to keep a clean house while working and raising children is dismissive of your reality. Maybe she had more support, maybe her job was less demanding, maybe her kids were easier, maybe she's remembering the past through rose-colored glasses. Either way, comparing your situation to hers and finding yours lacking is not helpful. It's critical. You explained your priorities, spending time with your daughter over having a spotless house. That's a completely valid choice. Your house is sanitary and safe, which is what actually matters. Whether there are toys on the floor or dust on shelves is aesthetic, not health and safety. Your husband saying his mum didn't mean anything by it, and that's just how she is enabling. When someone's behavior hurts you, that's just how they are, is not a valid excuse. That's how they are needs to change if it's hurting people. Your mother-in-law calling to say she hoped the house would be in better shape for Christmas was incredibly rude. She was literally telling you that your home wasn't acceptable to her and she expected improvements. Your response, suggesting they stay at a hotel if your home isn't good enough, was a reasonable boundary. You weren't rude, you were direct about the fact that your home is what it is, and if that's not comfortable for her, she has other options. Her saying you should put in extra effort for guests ignores the fact that you're already putting in effort by hosting them for multiple days. Hosting is work. Cooking for extra people is work. Having your routine disrupted is work. She should be grateful to be hosted, not demanding that you meet her cleanliness standards on top of everything else. Your husband saying you overreacted and that it wouldn't kill you to do a deep clean is him prioritizing his mother's preferences over your boundaries and mental health. You're already overwhelmed with work and childcare. Adding deep cleaning to prepare for someone who's going to criticize you anyway is not reasonable. The argument that it's normal to want your house extra clean for guests misses the point. The issue isn't whether people sometimes clean before guests arrive. The issue is that your mother-in-law criticized your normal level of cleanliness and demanded improvements, and you're refusing to accept that criticism. Your husband saying you're letting pride get in the way of family harmony is manipulative. This isn't about pride, it's about not accepting disrespect in your own home. Him saying you're going to ruin Christmas is also manipulative. You're not ruining anything. His mother ruined it by being critical and judgmental. You're just refusing to subject yourself to more of that behavior. The boundary you set, that she needs to apologize and stop criticizing before staying with you, is completely reasonable. You're not saying they can never visit again. You're saying they need to respect you and your home to be welcome as house guests. Your mother-in-law telling family members that you're being hostile for no reason is a lie. There's a very clear reason. She was critical and rude, and you set a boundary in response. The family members saying mother-in-laws sometimes make critical comments, and that's just how older generations are enabling bad behavior. Just because something is common doesn't mean it's acceptable. Older generations can and should learn to respect boundaries. Your husband threatening to go stay at a hotel with his parents is him choosing his mother over you. He's essentially saying that if you don't comply with his mother's demands, he'll abandon you and your daughter on Christmas. That's not you forcing him to choose. That's him making a choice, and it's the wrong choice. His first loyalty should be to his wife and child, not to his mother's preferences about how clean your house should be. You're not being gaslighted, you're being pressured to back down from a reasonable boundary by people who would rather you be uncomfortable than deal with your mother-in-law's hurt feelings. I'm calling not overreacting. Your mother-in-law was rude, you set a boundary, and everyone is mad at you for not just accepting the disrespect. Stand your ground. Your home is your sanctuary, and you don't have to welcome people who criticize it. If your husband chooses to spend Christmas at a hotel with his parents instead of with you and his daughter, that tells you a lot about his priorities. And maybe that's information you need to have. Alright, that's going to wrap up today's episode. We covered some intense family drama today. A friend who brought an unwanted boyfriend to a divorce celebration, a brother who wouldn't parent his kid for spoiling Santa, a stepdaughter who refused to give up inheritance, a bride who charged some bridesmaids but not others for dresses, and in-laws who criticized their daughter-in-law's housekeeping. The theme across all these stories is people setting boundaries and then being told they're overreacting for enforcing those boundaries. In every single case, the person asking if they overreacted absolutely did not. They stood up for themselves, refused to accept mistreatment, and faced backlash from people who wanted them to just go along with the disrespect. If you're taking anything away from these stories, let it be this: setting boundaries is not overreacting. Enforcing consequences when people violate those boundaries is not cruel. And refusing to accept criticism, manipulation, or disrespect is not being difficult. It's being healthy. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for episode 2. If you enjoyed these stories, please subscribe and let me know in the comments which story you related to most. I'll be back with more stories soon. Take care, everyone, and remember, trust your gut when someone makes you feel bad for standing up for yourself.